Well, hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Exceptional Living. I'm your host, April Ripley, and I'm so excited about our special guest today. As you know, the purpose of Exceptional Living is to share with you life-changing concepts, insights, tactics, and proven tools, all to inform, to inspire, and to ignite the greatness that lies in you. So we bring thought leaders, innovators, creatives, entrepreneurs, and grassroots organizers locally and globally to create a community, a network, again, to inspire and to encourage you to aspire to the greatness that lies on the inside of you. All of this so that you can stand out. Yes, in a world that's conditioned us to fit in, you were created to stand out. And my guest today is certainly one of those standout persons. NC, Samkilesiwe Ditwani, my special guest today. NC is consultant, entrepreneur, speaker, specialist in African markets. Her companies, so many companies, but I have to share them. I'm going to take the time to share with you this amazing, awe-inspiring, formidable woman, this voice, not an echo, not only in the nation of Southern Africa, of South Africa, but also around the world. She's making her mark. She is the director of Live Pack Development Services, CEO of Therado Holdings. She is the founder of Banbano, Women South Africa Entrepreneurship. And NC, the list goes on and on. She is an amazing mother, wife, consultant, and my sister. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome NC Ditwani. Hello, NC.
Good morning. Hello there. What an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
We are so honored to have you. And NC, I have to tell the audience really kind of how we met. I should do that. I should tell them how we met.
That would be nice. Thank you.
Yes. So to add just a little personal, spin to the formal. So I was in South Africa. Was traveling with Ambassador Andrew Young. This is in March. And one of the gentlemen that I met there, our mutual friend, now Harold, we'd met. We got back to Atlanta. I was actually headed over to Geneva, to the UN in Geneva, I believe, the next day. And Harold calls me and says, there's this woman that I met in Cape Town specifically. You have to meet her. And so we connected by phone, right? And he's like, oh, well, we're doing this event. I would love for you to come, Doc. And I was like, I leave the next morning. But something said, you have to meet this woman. And I'm so glad that I did. But not just you. There's some other women who are traveling with you in a group that you're working with, which is part of your vision, part of what you do. So I say that for all who are watching today to say that sometimes what may seem as something that would be inconvenient in your schedule or a possible detour, that sometimes these detours, these disruptions, and what is your normal are actually destiny drivers. And so NC has certainly, again, made her mark in South Africa. And when I traveled there later on in that year, the same year, and see, this was like accelerated. I was speaking at a women's conference. She came to support along with some other ladies from her organization. So I just celebrate you, my sister, for the work that you're doing, but more importantly, for the woman that you are. So thank you so much again for being with us today.
I'm honored, and I guess we're destined to meet. We were destined to cross paths. It was absolutely amazing when you showed up in that dinner on that night in Atlanta, Georgia. What were the chances for a person that's a traveler like you? So that was absolutely God ordained. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you very much, God.
Yes, it was. And to meet the women that were there. And, this show, NC, is about exceptional living. How do we live a life beyond the norm, beyond the expected? And just the brief bio that we heard from you, your life is certainly that. So talk to us a little bit about what exceptional living means to you.
To me, exceptional living means stretching yourself to the maximum, to where you've never been. Again, to me, exceptional living, I must be honest, being born from two missionary, my father and my mother were brought up by missionaries. They managed to get their formal education because there were missionaries that came to my country and gave them an opportunity, and they ended up being teachers. That history in itself told me that I cannot live for myself. So, in whatever I did, I managed to stretch myself to the limit. So, for me, exceptional living is living in your purposes. And when growing up, it wasn't clear where I was going. I remember how I chose my career. I looked at my sister, looked at my aunt, and I said, she's a nurse. I said, that uniform looks good on them. I think I want to be a nurse. But in that midst of nursing, I realized, yes, I need to be with people. Yes, I need to nurture people. But it was in a deeper way. When I felt like I was in a cocoon, I needed to be out there and touch and feel lives and work on people. So for me, exceptional living is about touching life and impacting in your God's design. Because when God brought us into this earth, I love his word because it says, I knew you before you were formed. So, and I knew that I needed to tap into me in order for me to live an exceptional life. So it's more tapping into your strengths, more tapping into your God-given talent, and over and above. For me, exceptional living is acknowledging that in life, I've got 8 aspects of my life. I'm glad I was introduced to be a Map for Life trainer there, because then I realized that, oh, well, if I've got 8, some books say 7 aspects of our lives. If I've got 8 aspects, that means I need to plan for each of those areas of my life in order for me to refuse to be average. Because under normal, we are content just by waking up in the morning, going to work, coming back, sleeping, and that's it. Yet you need to tap into your social responsibility part. You need to tap into your family part. You need to tap into your spiritual being part. They need to be fed. And you need to tap to your mental part. So there's a lot that I can mention there. And I'm glad that I learned that every area is very important, starting with your body, mind, and soul. So that's what I think exceptional living means to me, that I needed to understand all 8 aspects of my life in order for me to be above average.
Absolutely. You said so much, Nancy. I want to go back before we'll come back to the 8 aspects of our lives, but you mentioned something that you knew that you wanted to help people. What you saw was a model that was kind of passed along traditionally. And you said, well, I'll be a nurse. This is what I see because it allows you to help. But once you became involved, you still had this passion to help people. But the method of it being through nursing is something you discovered was not the way that you wanted to go about doing it. And I think that's really really poignant, because many people who have a desire to do something have to, we kind of wind our way into discovering the method and methods by which we'll do it. And so you're still helping people with, financial awareness, health, again, this collective of women in entrepreneurship. So you're still helping people, but you've released yourself from the cocoon and you're flying in a different, a different atmosphere, a different method of how you're doing it, but your message, your underlying why is still there. And you talk about these strengths, these 8 areas of life, spiritual, certainly for us as women of faith is so important. It's grounding for us. It's what keeps us anchored, not tied down, not to sail, but anchor as in secure, and safety. You talk about mental and social. Share with us a few more of these areas, NC.
Just briefly, spiritual, to start there. I realize that on a day-to-day basis, we have to learn more about the word, whether it's 15 minutes of your time, and you will fall in love with the spiritual because it tells good stories and bad stories. So to build us and build our resilience and build our values, I am glad that I was born in a family where I was taught the word. And that has kept me where I am. So we say you just need to learn from others that have walked before us. You need to learn because all our answers are in the Bible. That shocked me to bits. Second part of it is the social responsibility part. We as Africans are not so much into social responsibility. We are not so much into helping people outside. But because we're born in big families, we learned that I need to help my sister, I need to help my cousin, I need to help extended families. But as I grew, I realized it's just not about extended family. It's just not about me, myself, and I. It's about the little things we can plant and sow a seed into the orphanage, plant a seed into so many people that don't have what you have. So whether it's just availing yourself or it's financial planting. So social responsibility is king. Like in my notes, I say invest more in the youth because those are future leaders. So I'm planting most of my work. If you can realize there, I'm involved with MOOT, M-O-T. MOOT stands for courage. It's a Norwegian, it's a company that started in Norway. It's a non-profit organization that started in Norway that teaches the youth to be resilient and have courage to say no, courage to care, courage to leave. So, and because there's a lot of bullying that's happening around, there's a lot of drug abuse, there's a lot of alcoholism. And recently you have seen that there's 21 children, youth that have passed away due to drug, due to being in a shebeen, due to being in not a normal space where children should be at their age. So social responsibility resonated well with me. That's why I'm running with such organization as an ambassador and as a board member. For that reason, that we need to change their lives whilst they are young. In my language, we say, "Lugochwa lusemanti," meaning you bend the tree whilst it's still small. You can't do anything with a very solid tree that is grown to its maximum. So my main focus on social responsibility at this point is on the youth. Then you got your mantle. What are you feeding yourself? Inside out. If you feeding yourself, when they taught me about computers a long time ago, they said garbage in, garbage out. So whatever you feed yourself will show in the way you speak. It will come out in so many ways. So what are you feeding yourself? What books are you reading? What are you investing in your time in that 10 to 15 minutes? Because to be on the top 1%, you don't need to read 100 books. You just need to read one extra book than the average person. Then you become a top 1%. So mantle, what are you reading? What are you feeding yourself? And then it goes down to what you call financial. Hence my involvement with women, youth, and men in entrepreneurship. How are we empowering the communities? When the unemployment rates are absurd, when they are so mad, what are we doing to empower people? So as I was a nursing sister going around, my last job was managing HIV and cancer. I realized, man, in these houses, there's only one breadwinner. What, how are they surviving? Only one person working in the house. I ended up bringing some food parcels for people. I said, that's not lasting. I need to train people on how to use all they've got, on how to use themselves to cross over, on how to use themselves to get to the next level. I didn't know how. But one thing that I knew was that I can tap into them to investigate what else can you do rather than sitting down and burying yourself in this illness. What can we do? A garden? Can we do a small garden at the back just for you to have something to eat? Can we teach you how to do network marketing business opportunity? Because it doesn't need any capital. Can we teach you how to do crocheting? So I will get such things for them to do. And I thought entrepreneurship is the way to go, because nobody will employ you if you do not have the skills. Education is king, but at the end of it all, if not used well, or if not expanded to a lot of people and given equal opportunity, then we are stuck. But we are not, because some billionaires are not educated. So which means all of us have got power in us, can be innovative, have power in us, can come up with so many ideas. That is how I then started putting emphasis on personal development, because I realized that there is power in our minds. Yeah. Just switch on that plug. 100% is mindset. Yeah. So I started training my people, all of them, in personal development, to say you can, because you got it. You got everything the next person has. You're unique. You were brought into this earth to contribute. You are not assisting others. You are running on your lane. Nobody can duplicate you. You are running on your lane. And then I thought to myself, no, see, brother, you can get up and do it. What strengths do you have? What you're good at? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's such things that got me excited. And I said, I cannot reserve myself. I cannot keep quiet. I have to make sure they push. That's why first point of departure in anyone's life is work harder on yourself than your job. Work harder on yourself than anything else. The rest will fall in place. You look at yourself in the mirror every day, affirm to say, I will, I can, because I'm all that the world needs right now. Are you with me?
Yes.
All that is aligning.
Mm-hmm. It is. Enzi, you said so much, but as you said, everything that you need is within us. That the seed, everything that the seed needs to become a tree is in the seed. What the seed needs in all the things you've shared is to understand that when it goes into the ground, this dark place, that with water, the proper environment, the fertilization, which is what you talk about, which is the mental, what we're feeding ourselves, our mindset, knowledge, all these things lend to the tree. And as you were speaking, I thought about a little sapling tree, and you often see them tied to a stake so that they grow straight. Biblically, we see this in training up children, right? And the verses, we always stop at, the sixth verse, but the verses that follow tell what to train the children in. And these are life lessons. You talked about social, which is so important. The spirit of Ubuntu, right? That the sharing, I am my brother and my sister's keeper. And certainly socially recognizing, and this is scripture also in Colossians chapter 3, it talks about not just looking out for our own interests, but look out for the interests of others. And again, we see that Christ did this likewise. When he came, he did the works he said his Father sent him to do. But what were those works? They were outwardly of him, to heal, to clothe, to feed those who were hungry and naked and captive, not just physically behind bars, but mentally behind bars, or, depressed, all these things. is a part of discovery, as you said, of yourself and what you, not just you, NC, but all of us have something to contribute, and to do it on the level that you are. It reminds me of this young man who was into sports, and he said, well, I don't know what I can do. I said, well, you're at a different level. You could work with young persons, like primary or elementary, and teach them what you know. He started doing that. It actually turned into a business on the weekends, because parents says, oh, you're helping, they're getting better, the coaches are noticing. So it's really to your point that you said, is recognizing that we are part of this inescapable network of mutuality that Dr. Martin Luther King talks about, that we are a world house in humanity. And certainly Dr. Miles Monroe would always talk about the seed, and what we need is within us. God has already given it to us. But what our responsibility is, NC, as you just shared, is to get the right environment, our eye gates, ear gates, even the circle of persons that we're around, to be around persons like yourself. And that's why I love what you're doing there with the women, to not just feed off, but to contribute to, because every relationship needs reciprocity. This is something we see in the physical environment as well. The rain goes into the earth brings back, grows the trees help to take the carbon out. So there's all these reciprocal relationships that occur physically, but also in our own relationships, in the business and the work that you're doing there. And so this is very important for all of us. Again, and so, there could be someone says, well, I don't have this large organization, and all I have is my community, my home. But can't one start there? You can start there in your home with your friends, and you can begin to do things to inspire and encourage others. And that's really how this started. But NC, you came from a phenomenal upbringing of persons around you. Now you're wife and mother, business owner. How do you manage this? Is there a balance to be had, or is it just meant share with us how you do it?
I must assure you that at the end of it all, we are work in progress. We make mistakes, we do it all. We are work in progress. I used to call it balance in my previous life, but I realized there's nothing that is balanced about life. Nothing is balanced. We are really managing life in all the 8 aspects of our lives. Number one, what I discovered in this journey is that you look at every area, like some of us map our lives. So I look at every area and I look at the one that is struggling the most at that given time. And I focus on it more and give it more time in the 24 hours. Let's make a simple example. If my health is not in a good space, I cannot carry the family. So I look at my physical, like I did recently in December. My ankles were sore, my knees were sore. I couldn't do anything. And I had gained so much weight post-COVID because I was looking after everybody except myself. So when I saw that my physical is in a bad shape, I started doing something about it. I even wrote down in my journal, I said, I have to be selfish to be kind, which means for the first time in history, I said, I'm going to prioritize with myself. Not that I neglected everything and everyone, but most of the things that I did, I prioritized with me. So secondly, a lot of us make that mistake that we focus on our careers and we forget everybody else. And we study for 3-4 years, we do so many things and forget that we've got families and all. I said to myself, I have to have a daily action so that I don't neglect any. So the daily actions I will take. For an example, did I spend at least 10 minutes with my daughter? Did I spend at least 5 minutes or 10 minutes with my son? Did I give some attention to my husband those few minutes? Because I realized that our families do not demand an hour or so long. Some of them would even chase me to say, Mama, don't you have anything to do? But in that 5-10 minutes, I would have got that fulfillment that I know where my son is at. I know where my daughter's at. I know where my husband is at. Have you ever realized what we do when we come back from work? We are exhausted. We already tell ourselves that I must still cook. I must still do so much. We get overwhelmed. And we come with that horrible attitude when we get home. I changed that. I came with a good attitude at home when I realized that the bad attitude is damaging. It's not assisting me. I came with a good attitude at home, sat and asked everybody how they feel, where they were at. Guess what? When I finished doing that, they stood up with me. Including my husband, who's an African man, by the way, would say, oh, I heard you saying you're going to cook, so I will assist you with the dishes. I got so extremely excited because it's easy for him, for our African man to sit back and say, I don't cook, I don't wash dishes, I don't do anything. And sit back and a black woman does it all. I've seen it with my mother, nothing abnormal. My father wouldn't even go to the kitchen and get a cup of water. Everything was brought in by either us or my mother. So I know exactly where I come from. So to have a husband that does what he did, I was really forever grateful. But I realized that sometimes we need to move forward. We need to show them how much we care for them to come closer to us. And that's exactly what I did. And that was extremely successful. Before, when I get inside my house, I would scream at everything because you find shoes on the floor, you find everything lying around, nothing is done. I will lose my head and scream, but I realize whenever I park my car, it will be completely silent in the house. And when I call people, my children will say, I'm in the toilet. But I realize that it's continuously because of my aggression and the way I approach them. I changed completely and everything changed since then. They ran to Mama at the car park. So that was awesome for me. So you really, what you do, you try and make sure you look at your 8 aspects of your life and you say which one is struggling the most. Sometimes it's financial. When COVID hit, the financial strain was so real because our businesses that were running on big numbers, on 26 guests, went down to running at 6 guests. You know what I'm saying? So which meant financially we were strained. What did we do? We had to pivot. We had to create a consulting business, like you said. I started consulting for financial companies. Ask me my background. There's no financial background I have. But tell you what, I was ready to take on the world and learn because bills must be paid. We have to pay school fees. Life must go on. So I had to change and completely diversify my portfolio. So now we are consulting in commodities, in everything. But all I'm saying is I couldn't see myself standing still and watching life go on without me doing. So when financially I wasn't doing well, we put more emphasis on what can we do? What do we have in our hands?
Yes,
I love that part.
Yes.
What do we have in our hands that we can use to cross over? Like Moses had a rod. So we use all we've got to cross over.
Absolutely.
Yes. None of our possessions were repossessed in the process because we used all we've got. Obviously, you have to be grounded spiritually. I had to say, Father, this is what I'm going to do. They say faith without works is dead. So I had to say, this is what I'm going to do. Put some daily actions and Jim Rohn puts it well. He says, when a student is ready, a teacher will appear.
Yeah.
So many people appeared to assist me, to say, come, we'll put you here. Just like me being a consultant for Tex and Caicos, a company. That was through Harold Charles, Mr. Harold Charles, Captain Honorable now.
Captain Honorable now. Yes, so and even, but you know, NC, oh my goodness, so much that you have to be intentional. You also have to be honest with yourself. You know, we talk about integrity and we think, yes, well, I want to do business with someone who's integral in their business. But sometimes we're not as honest with ourselves, as you said. You had to sit down and take personal inventory of who you are, what was happening in your life, what were you struggling in? And I like to say, where was the opportunity for improvement in, right? And you have to do that, and you have to be intentional. And I think that's what lends to what people say, you know, authentic self. But in your authentic self, be honest with yourself, not just with other people, because, you know, like you said, you did so much for other people. We all did, right, during COVID. But you have to take the time, and you said this, you had to be a little selfish to be kind, because you can't just give out and give out. I talked about that reciprocity, because you will exhale, but if you never inhale, you will expire. So there has to be the exchange. And so you did this with yourself first. You committed to it. You were intentional first in your desire to be honest with yourself. And then with your family. I'll let you bring that in, because I believe that God creates family. It's the first community. And paying attention to family, because you can become successful. You can have all these great things that happen outside of your home. But scripture says it this way: what would it profit us? What would it be beneficial to us if we gain the whole world, but we lose our own soul? We lose our mind, our will, our emotions, our peace, that community of family and friends that are with us and support us. And then I love that you said you have to be willing to change, right? So first you're honest and say, I need to work on this. But you could just say, okay, this is something I need to work on. But until you went beyond intention to have a mechanism, something that you did in order to bring about the change, it would just be what it was with the intention. I think there's a story that says, 3 birds sat on a limb and they all decided to fly. Which one flew? Well, none of them, because intention without a mechanism, there's no result. So not until the bird took off in flight did he intend to do that. So you have definitely lived your life with intention, been willing to change, been honest with yourself, but also including family and friends and realizing how important that system of support is, and loving them and letting them see you as mom, as wife first, and as mom, and seeing that you all work together. I love that. And I've had the privilege also of meeting Opa. And I tell you, he has certainly found his good thing and obtained much favor of God. But you, in turn, my sister, are also blessed to have a man who loves you, loves God first, loves you, loves his family, and to see the work that you're doing together and how you support each other, even in some of your individual enterprising. And so I'm really, I'm just excited to see this and to hear your story. You went a little bit into, what happens when there are setbacks, and you talked about pivoting. Share with us what you really kind of did already and see of some of the things you did during this time of COVID. But can you bring out maybe 2 or 3 things that you specifically did during this time of transition and creating the new, I don't know if it's going to be the new normal, there's a lot of talk, but just some things that people can do when setbacks come into their life, or there's disappointments, things we had hoped to get that contract or hope to have, more clients, but it didn't happen. What can one do in those particular instances?
I'll go back again and say, Jim Rohn puts it well. He says, learn to discipline your disappointments. It has been a tough 2.5 years. But one thing that I realized was that if we start putting down, we call it establish your position. If you continuously establish where you are and write your top 100 goals, then minimize them to top 10 goals, and start putting actions on every single one of them, you realize it can be done, utilizing your strengths. But secondly, how did we pivot in this trying time? Technology is not my strength. I focused on understanding a computer all over again because I always had a secretary. That was a tough thing for me. I always had secretaries that were doing so much work for me, and suddenly I was left alone. Fortunately, COVID, my 2 children were with me for some time, 6 months, so they could assist me to get into the game again and continue working online. Hence, we had so many meetings online. Energy business was online, consulting was online, and I never stopped working. I've never worked so many hours like I've worked over COVID, because we were dealing with international clients and dealing with local clients. So the time zones were killing us. So I learned how to use things that I've never used before, like a computer. And technology wasn't my strength. Give me talking, give me touching and feeling people. So using technology to send my message was the toughest thing. And most important, one thing that I can assure you, I kept a positive attitude. A lot of us will say, all is doom and gloom. I'm not going for this. I'd rather wait until things are over. Attitude is everything. Change the way you look at every situation. Look at every situation in a positive way. Even if bad things happen to us, I would be like, it is God's design. Because Joseph in the Bible didn't put himself in a pit. It was God's design that he has to go to the pit, and he ended up being the second in command in the foreign land. So whatever was thrown at us in the tough times, I went back to the stories I've learned to say, no, man, they trusted God in that darkness.
Yes.
They trusted God that he will come through for them. And the one verse that kept me going was, all things work together for good to those who love the Lord and are called for his purpose. And I know that I'm designed for greatness. I'm designed to serve. So I knew that some things you don't need to understand. I said, I don't need to understand everything that is going through, but I know that your design is amazing. Fortunately for us, we had already embarked on a network marketing business that never stopped us. Even over COVID, it still paid us that little that we could put food on the table. So it wasn't all dried up, but he multiplied it for us to retain what we retained. I felt God's multiplication because he saw that we are trying. If you can ask me a simple question, were you successful with all the businesses that you did? No, only 10% was a success. 90 was a disaster because everything was new. Everything was new. But you ask me now, I know it will pay off over the years because we have put so much investment in the 2 years in the dark. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
And another thing is that become teachable. When you have to change where you're going, we need to learn to take criticisms. We need to learn to read and look at what others are doing that falls into your strength, and be teachable and open to people to say, I'm new here. I don't understand anything about this field. I'm ready to learn, ready to sacrifice time to learn on things that will take you to the next level, and take 100% responsibility. A lot of us like blaming every mishap or everything that goes wrong. We blame it on somebody else. No, take 100% responsibility, because by so doing, you're taking power to you. You're making sure that you say, no, 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 no. This was my carelessness. This was my mistakes. When COVID hit, or when the past 2 years, we looked at our life and we said, if we used our finances properly, we wouldn't be sitting in this mess. We didn't plan, we didn't prepare for that mishap that could happen. You know, now I teach entrepreneurs that make sure that when you earn money, save in such a way, live on little, because you do not know what tomorrow holds. Make sure at least you can still pay your staff for 12 months. Make sure that you can still put food on your table for 12 months. Because how many people were fired? How many of us laid off our staff after 6 months because we couldn't pay them? So I'm saying to people, make sure as an entrepreneur that you prepare coffers that could survive you minimum now. I'm not even saying 1 year, I'm saying 2 years. How do we prepare the coffers? Just by being disciplined on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
We don't have to live an extravagant life. We don't. We don't need nails. We don't need hair. We don't need things that we cannot afford. You know what I'm saying? You can afford it. Yes. But financial literacy is king.
Yes.
Master your finance, master your money that you worked hard for.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I did. Someone may be watching and say, I have to do my nails. I was laughing, but you said so much. You said so much. And one of the things really to start off, and it goes back to authenticity, is attitude, right? Your attitude determines your altitude. And having a mindset of being coachable, teachable, willing to change, all the things that you shared with us today, and willing to make, as I said, those changes, those corrections, and also the planning part, right? A wise person plans for the future because it will come. And, you know, often we think, well, that's just what they say in the business world. But I started to kind of do the search in scripture, and this leaving the next, or passing the baton, right? That's a part of planning to ensure that things will carry on beyond your physical being in earth. Christ did that. That's what he did for 3.5 years. Even when he was on the cross, in a cultural perspective, he left being the oldest son. You had to make sure the mother was taken care of. And so he turned to John and he said, this is your mother now. Take care of my mother. So Jesus was always planning. I mean, even from the beginning, God planned everything. And as you said, NC, even in those stories where we were in the pit, in the fire, captured, enslaved, the promise that God had for his people, that he has for us, to bring us to a good expected end, because he knows the thoughts and the plans that he has for us, that he orders our steps. We have lots of plans in our heart, but Proverbs 19 says that God will order our steps. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to do anything, because we are here in the realm. And so we need to plan. We need to understand finances, teach that to our children. And part of that also is in Proverbs 22. I was talking about that. It talks about borrowing and lending and who to have in your circle and being honest and all these things that we have to take care of. As you said, we have to plan for it. And if we have not, we can't, beat ourselves over the head and say, why didn't you do this, and get into despair and depress. But let's start here. Let's acknowledge it and let's move forward. What do I need to do to prepare again for the famine? Right? That the famine's going to come. I mean, honestly, NC, isn't that what brought Joseph into the prominence, that there was a famine coming, but he had a strategy that God had given to him to help even the nation of Egypt at the time to go through the time of famine. So recessions, depressions, they should not catch us unaware. And for those who hadn't experienced it, I think, as you said, this past 2 years was, okay, this is the potential of happening. And they're even still predicting a recession. As prices and supply chains and all these things are impacting local communities, not just nations, but going down to the local communities. So it behooves us to plan and to be wise stewards. I love that, because that parable is repeated actually twice in the New Testament about wise stewardship. And so we have to, and sometimes there's sacrifices, right? NZ, no nails. We have to pull out our old hairpiece or pull it back, or we can't take that elaborate vacation. We may have to do a staycation where we, go in our neighborhood and just look at the beauty of the parks or something more local. But there's a time for that. And Ecclesiastes talks about a time and a season. So we're in a different season now. And that's what makes you a wise woman and makes us wise, when we recognize the seasons and the times that we're in, and that we then meet that season with preparation, with prayer, with faith, and with hope. And so you have shared so much with us today. And I am just, again, honored. I'm privileged to call you sister. I thank God for you. I thank God for who you are, certainly whose you are in him, for being a phenomenal, awe-inspiring woman, wife, mother, consultant, motivator, coach, mentor. I'm giving you all these things. But that's what you are. And that you do it in the spirit of love, your heart of passion, but also compassion, taking the passion into action through compassion. So I thank you for joining us today. And any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience? We have so much, but please share.
I would just say, I've been studying Jim Rohn these days, and I'm excited about it. He's like, we are breezes of wind that blow here today and gone tomorrow. We cannot decide how long we live, but how well we live. And when he ends it off, he says, leave a legacy. You let others lead small lives, but not you. You let others cry over small heads, but not you. And he said, leaving a legacy is like planting a tree so that generations can plant their own. What legacy can you leave? What legacy are you working on? Because we've got youth out there that needs us.
Oh,
go big or go home.
Yes. Leaving a legacy that you will plant trees that someone else will sit under. But that's what love is. That's what God is. And that's what you're exhibiting through your life and through your work. Thank you so much, NC. Thank you for being a part today. And please give my regards and love to my family there in South Africa. Great things are happening. Despite what we may hear in the news, we may see, we know that through faith, we have the authority and the power to change things through decree, declaration, and action. So we walk it out. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Yes. Amen. Mwah.
So much.
Right. Thank you so much. As you just heard, our phenomenal, I told you she was going to be amazing, incredible, and shared so much. So I hope that you will go back to this broadcast many times to listen to the sage words of Lady NC Ditwani, because I certainly will. We want to invite you again to subscribe and like our channel, share it. More great things are to come. And remember that you were created to live an exceptional life, unique by design. You're created to stand out. So don't blend in. God bless you.